could engage with you directly and just discuss with you alone and pretend they're in the podcast as well. Make it interactive, sort of.
Yeah, but if it's in a conversation format where I'm talking to you but you're muted, then it's not the same as just like asking chat what they want to be talking about. Speaking of which, I should go to SPH chat. Any of you have any questions or unfun questions you'd like to send in for right? Welcome everyone to Five of the Week. Definitely not five and definitely not weekly, but still Five of the Week. We are joined by, of course, once again by Nepto. How's it going, Nepto?
Good. How about you? The famous
Yes,
return of the weekly podcast.
very famous. Not sure. Well, hmm. My mind went off on a tangent there. You definitely can do a scouting report and biography at any point during your career, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
you can do it at any point. You don't have to do it in your off season.
Yeah.
It's just people are greedy for TPE and want to use the advantage as early as
Yeah.
possible.
I didn't do the scouting report yet because I don't want to do it based on filler stats. So I haven't done it yet. And if I'm still in the lead or something, no, I'm not. Nice. But by doing my scouting report, I will be tied for the top spot in the upcoming draftees TP rankings. Well, enough of that. What should we begin with? How's it going over there in Oklahoma City? Currently,
I mean,
just for the
it's
listener,
doing
they are
fine.
tied with the Ravens for the first place in SBS season 62 with 50 wins to 15 losses. It's fine.
It's fine. It's record-wise, it's not as good as the last two seasons. Point differential is somehow the best of all the last four seasons.
Mm-hmm.
Or I think it's probably the best in Rampage history. I haven't bothered to check. Leon is officially a full monster, so that's nice to see. And yeah, we are just rolling on, and then we'll see what the playoffs bring and go from there. I mean, it's not like we will have to meet the Iron Man this season.
Mm. Yes. Um, yeah, I find it very interesting how overpowered the height advantage for a player is because Lundell is um, a much better offensive player than my 1500 TP player is. And Lundell is sitting at, let's see
He's
the
at
exact number.
1.1k TP, I
Yeah,
think.
1181. Yeah. So enjoy. Um, Maybe I do have time to re-roll still my new player, but I don't think that will be too interesting. So I'm not gonna re-roll my player. Just gonna stick with it. Yeah, the Rampage this season they're starting Oleg Piton. Can't remember who the filler.
It's no filler this season. It's an inactive. We upgraded.
Right, right. So it's
Not a good active, but it's
yeah, it's Omar Black. Don't know. There is a symbol on SPAO in the listing that doesn't translate to the index, but I don't know if that symbol is for inactive or whatever. Maybe it is because it looks like an eye.
Yeah, it is. It's the inactive symbol.
Yeah. Then Ezekiel Bridges Jr., very famous in OKC, as was his father. Um, yeah, I think I shouldn't say I think you guys have a very good chance this season, but as a team, I think this looks the most capable, maybe out of them all. Although, like, the
I'm
creation
not
stuff,
quite sure of it.
yeah, the
I'm not
creation
quite
stuff
sure.
is not what it was at one point, but yeah, what are you not sure of?
I'm not sure if this is the best team we've had in the last couple of seasons in comparison to the competition, but we don't have any that glaring weak spots as we did against the Vice last season, so it's fine. Um, I'm not sure what to expect. Semifinals I sort of expect at this point with this team, but we will see.
Hmm. Yeah, I don't think it's like in comparison to the competition, all to like um like it is great, but not better than any of the previous seasons. But in just in a vacuum, I think as a team, if you compare it to the previous Oklahoma City teams of
Oh
the few
yeah,
years, I think this would be the best. Obviously boosted by year 8 Magnus, but
he sucks. Don't let him fool you.
well, I think if he sucks
He's a
now,
massive diva.
yeah, but if he sucks now, imagine how much he sucked in year 5, like compared to like if he was to go against his own self 3 seasons ago, I would still give the edge to the
Yeah,
year 8
probably
one.
because
Yeah.
he just has TP. But funnily enough, I was more pleased with him in year 5 than I am with him in year 8 by a long shot. Um, but that's an entirely different conversation. I'm not sure how you feel with Achille. I mean, he's had a pretty good season so far, hasn't he?
Well, yeah, it's going up each season, but it's still not like as good. Like I don't understand if I should have 99 quickness instead of like 92 inside to just like get the max benefits, but even then seems like the role is somewhere in between like the massive scoring big and a two-way big with Bishop and well, not too many other scorers on the team right now. So it's difficult to say like if I'm pleased with the results, but I'm pleased with what I've been able to do. Like on my end, it's just
Mm.
it's kept steady and minutes are still high even though we're winning games again. So there's not more I could ask for really. And
That's a bit that's weighing on the top teams. Those blowouts are cutting into your minutes more than some might think.
yeah, but it's still over 40 minutes. If it was below 40 minutes, then it would be like uh, bordering on like obviously 40.3 minutes a game is also bordering on it the same as 39.9 would be like that means it's like
Mm.
20 seconds times 67. It's not that much like that much more um in a season, but yeah, just in terms of counting stats, it they stack up quite nicely when you get to play a lot of minutes, and that's what I always do when my players have a very high fouling attribute just to make sure I can play instead of a filler or whatever, or
Mm.
even Omar Bl if that was to be the case. Wonder if Omar Bl is eligible to play all positions. He is just I think he is probably because it's uh, DJ Cactus plays a lot of minutes. Anyway, that doesn't have anything to do with it. We should talk about something way more important. So let's just stop here and yeah. What do you think is more interesting, like the upcoming draft or the upcoming playoffs or the maybe how the best players in the league is do or are doing. I almost said is just as there is one good player in the league, but
I think playoff race could be interesting because it's still kind of tight down there. Um,
down. Well, yeah,
Yes,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
like
Down.
fight for the 12th spot
Yeah, 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 yeah.
is quite interesting. Uh, yeah. Otherwise, I think draft always for the draftees is kind of nice. We actually have a decent amount, I think, this season.
Yeah, a lot of
Okay,
players.
a lot of high-end players, and then suddenly it stops. Um, I think that's interesting. Also, I have one fun fact about this season,
Right.
about one player this season. So
So, what did you say about your fun fact?
my fun fact is Kane Fox Jr. is currently averaging the most free throw attempts per game since Moses McAdoo in like season 35, I think.
Yeah.
Um, even has more free throw attempts than famously spoon-fed usage guards Grant Thompson had at his peak. So to average this many free throws as a rookie is kind of impressive to me, and it's an outlier I didn't really see coming. Um, so
Mm. Yeah, combining the free throw attempts and field goal attempts for each player on the Las Vegas Jokers, Ken Fox Jr. has like 5 times the other starters, like Corleone and Drake Yee, and who's the other starter? Yeah, I think it's Iguodala. For
yeah, it's
Iguodala, it's just slightly over 2.2 times the amount, but yeah, there's a lot of.
it's not a great team, and he's also having good amount of usage, but not the same amount that someone like Thompson had back then. Or
Yeah,
Baramy, I think, was the other guy that even got over 9 free throw attempts per game in the last 2 decades. Um, so it's kind of fun to see someone breach that mark again.
yeah, let's just take a look at some of the players from the after the season 30 mark. So there's, like you said, Moses McAdoo in season 33 had 10.9 free throw attempts per game. And then we have to scroll a long way until we get to another, like, sort of contemporary player, Jeremy Bermy, with also 9.2 attempts per game, tied with Grant Thompson actually for the sort of modern day record for a player at, yeah, 757 for the season. So let's just see, 757. What's the ratio right now? 611 to, yeah. Kane Fox Jr. is, yeah, slightly above that rate. So Kane Fox Jr., if he keeps this current rate up, would end up a couple of spots ahead of Thompson and Beremy. So yeah, that is actually interesting. But I I would have guessed it's less rare than this. Like I would have guessed like Kane Fox Jr. would have been at like 8.6 or 8.3 free throws attempted per game if I just didn't look at it, which would still be a whole lot.
I
But
think over 8 free throw attempts per game is very impressive in the last 2 decades or so. There are very few players that have breached that mark.
yeah, there's Dallas Brucker, Mr. X, Jeremy Beremy, and I think I saw someone else as well. Like,
Grant Thompson again.
yeah, 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 but the other two I just mentioned earlier. Yeah, Thompson and the Beremy. Yeah, that is actually interesting. And that also, like, the fact that Kane Fox Jr. can shoot free throws is aiding his like if he was shooting 47% on those free throws, then it would be like actually very bothering because you have the opportunity to boost your scoring so much, and just because you decided to go for like 71 blocking, you now can't shoot free throws or whatever. Like, what's the 71 blocking doing for you right now? I guess starting the grind of churning out career totals, but not sure how interesting that is. Yeah. Let's just see if there's any precedent for very high career marks in free throws attempted. Like if Kane Fox Jr. was able to have over 8 for his career, that would pretty much make him the second or third most effective offensive player in that sense, after McAdoo and Muad'Dib. Looks that way. Yeah. Yeah. So on a good track. Not many interesting things coming out of the Las Vegas Jokers this season, but this is certainly among the top interesting things, all things considered this season. Uh, Now that I forgot to ask you before I started recording, I'm gonna ask you now. What do you think of um, the amount of teams, Jokers included, trying to purposefully lose games this season? Do you think like it's like 8 teams sort of trying to
I'm not
tank?
sure if they are all purposely losing or if they are just bad, like really bad. For example, the Vipers. Yes, it also has a bit to do with the team they assembled, but they have one active player,
Yeah,
that's goalie himself. So I don't know. You cannot win with this team, anyways.
yeah.
The
But like it's purposefully built to lose as well. Like that's part of the equation. I
Yes,
tried to
yes,
set up.
it's a part of the equation, but there's also like there are many inactives, or I was close to say fillers, but fillers are not that good on the SBA level.
Yeah,
Or remaining free agents that could improve your roster in any kind. So we are coming to a point where the free agent pool is getting really small, and it's tough to get like middle of the market guys that are not stars but are also not inactives and the worst of the worst. Um, yeah, I don't think it's really an issue to have those teams down there, because we have like 16 teams that are actually competing, then one or two teams who are just like in the growth phase, and the rest is just still quite at the start of a rebuild, or just cannot attract the talent either by waiver wire or draft or free agency to field a competitive team um, right now.
yeah. Just based on some of the inside information, I would punch Inferno and Iron Man into just making sure they lose as much games as possible. But also,
I mean,
like,
it's the Iron Man for sure with the Inferno, like a weird team.
yeah, but that's the inside information part that also ties into it. Like,
Oh yeah,
I know they try to lose, but also try to keep Witherspoon on the team and Rubiato on the team, I guess. So they have like, hmm, we both, Arizona and Pittsburgh, have like an added struggle into our struggle, I guess. What do you think
I
of?
mean, I would say Pittsburgh is more talented than Arizona still. Um,
Yeah,
but
what?
obviously not that talented either. But you could do probably get a couple wins more if
Yeah,
you
what
try.
makes it great is that we are below Arizona, even though we have better players. Like, I can't deny that it feels very good. Not sure about my players, but I'm not asking them. Like they signed on. It's whatever.
And you
Next,
already complained to me that I should fuck off from the power forward
yeah, yeah. Next week, rather next season, there's gonna be a lot more wins. I hope. Um, it's not a given, obviously, but I just think like purposefully losing games is not a good way to get wins. And when we get back to purposefully winning games, or actually trying to win games on purpose, That should be better. And yeah, under my leadership or general managerial tenure, I think I would say we have consistently won more games in the regular season than was probably expected. Like, especially that one time we were the number one seed, even then.
Mm.
So, yeah, it's funny to see that I can do it the other way around as well. Like, lose more games than I need to, or lose more games than the players are capable of. Yeah. Enough of them. Um, who do you think is? I had another question there, but I lost it. Anyways, who do you think is the most interesting? Has been the most interesting player or team this season? Like, is there something going on? I could take Kane Fox Jr. for an answer as well because you said that's your fun fact. But if it was Kane Fox Jr., then who is the second most interesting player or team this season, in your opinion?
Uh, I think K Fox Jr. is obviously interesting because he's an outlier, but he's not very competitive. Um, I think what's also quite interesting is the duo of Lundell and Kunda being the top two in field goal percentage, and they will probably be for the next 4 to 5 seasons till Lundell regresses, and then Kunda will reign up there on his own, most likely. Um, which, in my opinion, reinforces the point that to all those guys that said, well, Freak's height didn't matter, well, it still does. I think it's quite obvious that it does because Kunda is. I think isn't at 70% field shooting anymore, but he was for large stretches of the season, and Vandell is well over that mark, so he will finally crack his goal in his fifth season. So yeah, that those two are going to dominate your defenses for a while.
Yeah, in terms of other players in the top of the field goal percentage rankings, you have over 7 feet tall or like freak height players, Muad'Dib, Rauta and Van Rong, Vitatas, Petronaitis, and then you have some other players like
They have a
some
lot of the
Samora,
freak
yeah,
shooting guards.
yeah, Thomas. So yeah, I'm not sure about the standard height players. Maybe they just all built bad. All 150 of them just have bad builds compared to the 7 people who happen to have very good builds. And yeah,
I don't think it's really a build issue because
no,
I
it's not.
also looked into it a lot when I made my plan more or less for Magnus to do I go freak this time around or not? And especially at positions where you have a size advantage, it's quite evident in my opinion. But there's different opinions as always on FBB's topics, so that's completely fine. What's your key takeaway in terms of players for the season?
Well, I've been happy about the fact that Alexei Sadesky is actually sort of close to a real player. A player we slandered quite heavily previously on this program is like sort of getting there.
Mm.
If the like the slash line actually already looks quite nice if you completely disregard the 500 free throw percentage, but like 45.7 career 3-point shooter is very nice, and then at 5.52.1 field goal percentage this season, which is like that's pretty much what I get for 1,500 TP. So very nice. Well,
That's
actually,
a bit.
yeah, I get yeah. It says 594, But anyways, yeah, I've been happy about that. I've also been very surprised about Juhani Pakkala actually being very good, sort of defensively. Like for a defensive
He's going
specialist,
to make the first playoffs of his career.
yeah,
Way.
for a defensive specialist,
Well,
all his
is he?
career.
Or are the battalion currently out? Let me count. 5,
Yeah, let's just
8,
make sure.
9, 10. He's the 12th seed right now, so maybe he still isn't making the first playoffs of his career.
Yes, with a game in 2 games in hand against the Chiefs, who are below them, and 2 games in hand against the Bullets. So yeah, they seem to be poised to get into the playoffs, but it's still 12. Like one slip up will, uh, or not even will, but should completely ruin your trajectory. Yeah, let's see just to make sure the battalions do they have. I saw Good Left Undone do some sort of comparisons of the remaining schedules, but just taking a look here at Ironman twice for battalion, also at Jokers and Ravens at home and at Ravens. Yeah, well, it's a kind of a standard mix of good and bad teams, so not all too much to say. Not, I would guess just by eyeballing it that they could like keep up a 600 win percentage, but they
Yeah, I
also,
think they have a lot of home games that will help
yeah,
as well. So
yeah. I think I should pick someone who's not just a very good defender. Well, I don't know if Tesadeschi is a good defender, but racks up steals.
choosing for what purpose?
Who else has been like especially interesting this season?
Ah, I mean, you
Maybe if I
could say
can't
that
come up with some, what? Who?
Wally Herman felt interesting for a good stretch of the season.
Yeah, yeah. I also voted Wally Herman for All SPA last season, or placed him third in my Center of the Year ballot. I can't exactly remember the reasoning, but it's probably just something about like very high blocks, very good shot selection, sort of high efficiency, and high assist for a center, something like that, probably. Yeah,
Yeah,
this
I think
season,
otherwise,
yeah.
uh, in terms of interesting, we could obviously um, talk about Hollywood because
Yes.
for a player with 99 athletics everywhere, he isn't finishing that well. It's probably because of the team around him in Milwaukee not being perfect for his situation for his play style.
Yeah.
But it does feel comically low for someone maxed out on athletics and having decent volume attributes, high free throw shooting, etc., etc.
Yeah. I wrote about Demetrius Hollywood last week and posed the question that if he could be remembered as the best Milwaukee Mauler of all time, obviously with some very high competition, with the likes of Moses McAdoo and Ilan Laguerre, I think.
But
Ilong.
did I mean Grion? I think was Quadro and Onizuka also Milwaukee players
Yeah, but
before they got traded.
it's the question is about longevity. Like
Ah, yeah, okay,
obviously
then
McAdoo is better uh, as an all-time player than Meat and Rice, but McAdoo played there for I think 6 seasons and broke a dickload of records, whereas me and I don't think he won like too much of playoff series. Can't
you
remember.
mean with freedom.
Oh, Freedom. No, with McAdoo in
Ah,
Milwaukee. Whereas Hollywood still has like sort of a chance to even become an SBA champion in a Milwaukee Maulers uniform. Not all too
Yeah,
likely, but
I was
still
about to
has a
say.
chance. Like it could perfectly be in line next season. And
So
yeah,
let's look at McAdoo. McAdoo playoff. Went to the playoffs 2 times with the Maulers. One time only 1 round, 7 games outing,
lost. Yep.
and the other one 14 games. So I
Ah,
guess
right.
2 or 3 rounds. I'm not sure. Probably two because it was only the 18 playoffs back then.
Yeah. Well, there is something then. Like a series win was one series one more than I thought because I just said didn't win all too many playoff series. So one is one is actually more than Hollywood has won so far in Milwaukee. I think because they
That's
also
true.
yeah
That's true.
yeah I didn't actually I didn't actually consider it all too much. I just like got hung up on the longevity factor and how, compared to the peers right now in the shooting guard position and small forward positions, Hollywood is like a very notable player in the current SBA. But then when you line it up all time, I don't think it's too much of a competition still. But yeah, remains to be seen really. Not
I
sure
mean,
who
it depends on what he does this season.
or next
He's now
season. Yeah,
spent 8 seasons in Milwaukee, so if
right.
they get a season series win this season, I mean, it could be still good. But after 8 seasons, you're bound to lead your team in I don't know how many categories. I mean, even Magnus is now the leader or is about to be the leader in points, rebounds, steals, all kinds of field goal, free throw, 3 point mates um, in Rampage history just because he played all those seasons. So it's stacking up at some point so that I think you could consider Hollywood the greatest Mauler player of all time just because he stayed with the franchise for so long.
Yeah. Do you think there are other players currently in the league who could be remembered as the greatest players who have played for their franchise? Like greatest player in franchise history? Obviously, it could be a little too early to say about the first year or second year players, but if you want to include any, then that's your pick.
I mean, it's tough to say with two young players because they obviously still have a lot to prove and are not guaranteed to stick around with the team. Especially year one and two could be bouncing after the first 2 seasons, and there goes your case. I think Brooklyn Murdy could exert himself into the same echelon as like Jaws, and I guess you could consider Thompson also in there, and Hurts,
And Calderon.
mainly because they are. Yeah, I don't know Calderon. I mean, I wasn't around for Calderon, so maybe that's the reason for it. But Calderon doesn't strike me as too impressive from the whole that that I can see on this page every time. I trust me, I've looked at his stats a lot of times. Obviously, they're great stats, but greatest Raven, and then I look at Jaws and think like,
Yeah, it's
I
all
don't
in
quite
the
see it.
it's all in the
Um,
experience.
yeah, probably. But Brooklyn Murdy already has also a couple of rings, has one MVP. Um, is probably going to add a second one this season. And yeah, the way the Raven system works for him right now, and it's just a year seven player, I think. Um,
Yes.
so the chance to add at the end 3 MVPs if everything goes according to Town's master plan, I guess. Um, with great stats and everything to boot, I think that could be worth a look for best franchise player. Um, yeah, otherwise, maybe for the battalion, it could be Matt Thomas in the future if he stays with the team because he has had some pretty impressive seasons for a small forward yet, especially in the scoring department. And besides Kobe, and maybe Wally Herman Sr. I can't really remember any notable long-term battalion player. I don't know if you have anyone left in mind otherwise.
Currently, or just in the recent times, I
In
think.
general, battalion long-term greatest players,
Yeah, I think
because I mainly remember Kobe and Herman.
Witherspoon also like has that sort of cachet, longevity, and very good talent, but also going up against Hawkins in that measure is kind of difficult. Just I guess depends on what you prefer, but I would
Mm-hmm.
guess most people prefer Hawkins still. Then you also have some of the Wolverines players, like Wolf, but it's also like you also had Joe Cooper, even though Cooper went elsewhere, and you
Yeah,
even
I
had
think
like Serrano. So
I think Wolverines is Cooper's for forever.
yeah, yeah. You mentioned Ekstrom, also Akili and Bishop,
Yeah, true,
but
true. I think Akili more than Bishop because
yeah,
I don't think Bishop was part of the championship team.
yeah, he was,
Mm. He was. Oh,
yes, in his
okay. So
rookie season,
sorry,
yes,
11, if you're listening.
yeah, in
I
his rookie
already forgot
season.
you.
And yeah, Akili with 8 seasons in Charlotte with one championship, maybe some interest in the ever evolving Defensive Player of the Year conversation and the all SBA conversation, but not all too much in the end. Then for other teams, you also have like Campazzo and Pejic as interesting studies. Like Campazzo definitely like could be considered as one, but
Yeah,
it's
but
also like
Campazzo has to go up against heroes, so
yeah,
that's a tough one
yeah.
to take.
Like with Hero, the high peaks were massively high on an individual and on a team level, whereas for Campazzo, it's just been very high performance for a while, and and yeah, not sure what to think of that either. Yeah, and there's a couple of these teams that seemingly like the Wolverines have their franchise goat, so to speak, locked up. It's very interesting to think that the Ravens, even with all the players they've had, might not have a franchise goat locked up yet, as they keep turning out more and more championships and success. Yeah, has Evo upcoming played all his career in Montreal? I think so,
I think
yes.
he has. I
Yeah.
think he has.
So then there's like some interest between like Evo upcoming and Ephodos Pararexis
Yeah, I was about to
because
say that the comparison to me would be then Effortless because both are offense first guys, and it's a tricky debate.
yeah, but Ephodos then didn't play all his career in Montreal. So should that be a knock or not? I don't know. I don't have an opinion one way or the other because in totality, I think Ephodos still played like more than 8 seasons in
Yeah, I think it was
Montreal.
8 or 9 seasons that he played in
Yeah,
Montreal.
because it was in Toronto for one, and then 9 in Montreal, and then one elsewhere, I think.
What I think it was one in Chicago at
Yeah,
year 11 or
yeah,
something like
yeah.
this.
Like exactly that way. So right now it's like the longevity is pretty much on the same level, or even in Ephodos's favor right now. And Ephodos, like, it's difficult to say who was more memorable, but with the Offensive Player of the Year trophy, not trophies, probably had like three of them. Come to think of it.
Let
Uh,
me look. He just has one offensive player
right,
of the year.
right. So I was correct on my first instinct. Yeah, yeah. Still have some like memorable like achievement in his career, and also like all in the all-time scoring list very high.
Yeah, all-time scoring list, and also I think it was the best stretch of Monarchs basketball.
Yeah,
I mean, the current one isn't bad either, and could still continue on for a couple of seasons. But
yeah,
I
but
remember like the
that one
'40s Monarchs
continued. Yeah,
were good back then.
yeah, that just like continued without reason, really. Like each time you see Montreal Monarchs in the second round of the playoffs, and you're like, what? And then they'd get washed by Houston in 4 or 5, and then you'd remember, yeah, it's just a mirage. Um, Anyone on the Corsairs, like it's just Sebastian, really, who would, but yeah, then again, Sebastian is also very young, so. Hmm. Let's just go through them one by one. So for Ravens, you have Walker Santos pretty much up there. Then for Rampage, something like Ekstrom. And in terms of memorable moments, you also have Oscar J. Basilan and
I think
what's Creed's first
mm,
name? Creed.
Lincoln Creek.
Lincoln
I think
Creek. Yeah, yeah,
Creek is still the best Rampage player of all time right now, partly because of his achievements, even though he didn't play all the seasons at OKC.
yeah,
I think he had a couple sprinkled all over the place.
yeah.
Um, but
Oh
it's
yeah,
hard to beat
Creed
what
is
he did.
Evans is one of the first players, I think, something like Ronan Creed. Yeah, that's a different player. Lincoln Creek is the,
Lincoln Creek from AO.
yeah, that's one. And then for Miami, you have some.
Sejuki? I know he wasn't there for a lot,
Yeah,
was
no,
he?
no, no,
He was not
definitely
in
not.
Brooklyn.
I would guess like Gaucho, Pablo Gaucho for
Hmm?
one, and then you also have some of the season 30s like super players like what's the not Jay Lyso's player, but the I'm just gonna
Okay,
go
so
check.
looking at the list, who pops out? You have
Season
Jacoby
34
Battle in
Tropics.
there. You have Marquise Washington played a bit on the ice, even though
Yeah.
his early seasons are not his good ones. Um,
Eisen McDougall, yes, that's the one. And also Jogan's player, Amr Al Masri. Yeah, so yeah, in the season 30s, they had a lot of very good players. But yeah, I think,
maybe it's Alexander Marcus for the Vice because he played his whole season there, won two
yeah,
championships, has an MVP. So that could be someone.
yeah, that's a better resume than Gaucho's. But I just think, like, yeah, actually, yeah, because like 5 seasons of Pablo Gaucho's career was under the name Miami Tropics. So that also takes away from the
The
experience.
Vice moniker,
Yeah,
so he can't be the Vice great.
yeah. It's just the greatest Miami player, not
Just
the
like Ray
greatest.
Allen cannot be considered for the Thunder.
Yeah, yeah, right. Yeah, that's interesting. I don't think players like El Meliani or well, King Kunta definitely has a chance, but that would take
If he sticks with the
yeah,
team.
8 or 9 seasons more, I think. Then for the Aviators, it's like, who would you say if they're like 4 seasons ago? If someone asked, would you say it's like Ante Strosak or whatever?
I mean, he played a lot with the Aviators, but he didn't win a lot.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. So obviously, yeah, he had a good career in Charlotte, but
Also, yeah,
like
Mason Washburn.
the Dean Sami also was in Charlotte for a long time. I think for 7 seasons or so, and was also good. I consider him better than Strozek even
Yeah.
because he could actually play defense.
Like before
Um,
Robinson, who would be like the one player? I think it's probably like between Washburn and I don't know.
I would probably say Sami because Washburn, while he was good, was only there for a limited time. I think like 3 or 4 seasons, same as Freedom. Um,
4. Yeah, I think 4. One
and
season more than Freedom.
was he there 1 season more?
Yeah, because he left from Milwaukee, and I still had to stick around in Milwaukee for 1 season.
Uh,
So that would make sense that he was there one
yeah,
season
he was
more.
4 seasons. You were 3 seasons, so
Yeah,
that's the way. Yeah, I think it's probably Sami before Robinson,
yeah.
with
But then
Robinson.
now
I
it's
think it's
like,
Robinson right now,
yeah,
and maybe Achille because depends on how the season goes.
Yeah.
If Akili stacks a Finals MVP on his head, then
Yes, right. Yeah, obviously Robinson and Akili shared the same championship in season 57, but then also Robinson got like wrapped in a present box, like 3 or 2 of his 4 small forward of the year awards. So it's very interesting that like obviously on a just like tracking them up, 4 positional awards, most improved player, champion compared to just champion. It's obviously in favor of Robinson, so we should go with Robinson. Then, yeah, for the Monarchs, we already talked about them with wide consideration going for Ephodos Pararexis. Also, just because I had so much fun with that stuff, Hoplon, or yeah,
oh yeah, yeah.
Hoplon is also like worthy of a mention. Also, a friend or friends, I suppose, of the 5 of the Week podcast since they. Um, there's been, I think, 2 guest appearances, maybe just one. Anyways, moving on
I think it
to.
was Tomato and Plutarch. I don't think we
Yeah,
had
but I don't know if we
guest
had like
appearances.
two Plutarch 2 times or once. That's what I mean. Maybe just
Ah, yeah,
once.
yeah.
Yeah, for Boston, this is one that's very interesting because you have some of the players from the before times, and also you have some of the players from the after times, and then there's not too many players from the now times other than Wally Herman Jr. So, like,
Uh,
at
I don't like any of the choice. Probably Baylor.
yeah, like that. That's what I was like leaning towards. Like Lavelle, very good. Jay Rich, very good. Baylor, very good. Then also you had Tyler Swift in there for some time, also very good. Joey Hatfield even, but that's
Yeah, Joey Hatfield was like career Minuteman,
yeah,
the 99 jump shot man.
yeah, ruined the franchise when they wanted to try and lose for better draft picks. Joey just shot 23 times a game. Yahoo didn't run from the grind.
Yeah, Minuteman is tough. I guess Baylor or Jay Rich, something
Yeah,
along those
I would
lines.
say Baylor, J. Rich, or Lavelle. There's not, and Wally Herman Jr. is making a case for it through his career because it's like on level with the guys I mentioned there, I would say.
Mm.
But it's interesting. Obviously, one that or 3 of them were looking in retrospect, and Herman Jr.'s career is still ongoing. And then Philadelphia. There's been a lot of players in Philadelphia history.
I was about to say we could go way back with players. I
Yeah,
have
because
no
this
clue
is
who they
like
are. Um,
I
I
know a
know that
lot of
Kane
them.
Fox was great, so
Yeah,
he wouldn't be a bad choice. But I also know that Larrea was one of the best shot blockers the league had seen.
yeah.
And then there's a whole lot of, I guess, Evans and Jogan players that have been decent, you could call it.
Wonder if we could see how many just like player games played. I don't think that's very easy to achieve. So let's just look at like field goals made. Yeah, Ronan Creed, the one player I was talking about earlier. It wasn't Guillaume Laguerre. Uh, who's the Steve-O player who played for?
Maurice Crouillon,
Oh
he played
yeah.
for
The other
Philadelphia.
French
He
name,
played
yeah,
for
Rouillon.
the
Yeah,
Marlins.
yeah. Sorry to anyone listening. I didn't mean to misguide you guys with my lack of prehistorical knowledge. Yeah, DB the Brat and Tequila Barbosa, also very famous players, but not on the level of Kane Fox, I don't think. Then you also have like Steven Presi Jr. had a very nice and long career in Philadelphia. as the
Yeah, he
like
certainly had, but it's like it's tough to compare him to someone in the less team era. But Fox has like the
yeah.
slightly bigger resume and statistical prowess behind him.
Yeah, and if you just look at it, like I would guess that Kane Fox Jr. is top like 7 in all categories in Philadelphia Prowlers history, other than assists. Like that's pretty simple.
Probably.
That's pretty simple to say that he is the best Prowler of all time. Then for Chicago, I originally thought this would be like a slam dunk. Giovanni Owen Allen Tatum thing, fittingly
Mm-hmm.
enough. But like there is some interest with
You could throw guys like Magnum McCoy out there, I
and
think, but
Lesnar
in
even.
the end, they haven't played as long in Chicago as Scope. They only were there for stretches every now and then.
Well, McCoy played in Chicago for 6 seasons, but
Yeah.
also McCoy didn't win 2 Finals MVPs, although I'm pretty sure he helped a whole lot in Goat getting those Finals MVPs. So it's interesting. Also, yeah, Ragnar Lesnar played for 6 or 7 seasons.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
he wasn't the real good Lesnar. So he was good, but not the MVP.
right, right. Not the sky blue Lesnar that he was in Charlotte. Yeah, but I'm just gonna stick with Tatum because I started from there. Also, a former teammate of mine, I think, in Houston. Yeah, excellent. I didn't win shit with him compared to Tuki Lamont, who will feature in our best of all time Thunderbirds discussion later, way later actually, since we're only at the Wolverines.
Joe
Yeah,
Cooper,
we
I
were on
don't
Joe
think
Cooper,
questions
so
asked.
Serrano has a
Serrano has two MVPs, but yeah,
yeah. If you think of
Serrano is
Wolverines
definitely
players, I think first you will think of Cooper still, very shamefully actually. But anyways, yeah, for the
MVP.
Maulers,
I mean, at least he doesn't appear weak.
yeah. Well, I guess we can just make this a career retrospective.
We can do a Cooper segment each week. So how does play X version of a
Let's just
classic?
make it the podcast 5 of the week. Let's just select 5 games from Joe Cooper's career. Like, let's just go through 5 games at a time and talk about what happened. Anyways, a more interesting one will be the New York Rail, since they've had multiple excellent players in their history. So it's just on the surface level, I think it's like if you prefer Clegane or Nogueira, but I think most people would prefer Clegane to Nogueira.
Yeah, I think Clegane has the scoring prowess to no ends.
Yeah, and
The
Clegane
fir-
also wasn't
I think
because he was
Clegane
a
was the
center.
prototype for Johnson, so which K draw inspiration from.
Yeah, and also Clegane played all his career into regression on the rail, whereas for Nogueira
Nogueira
played
only
in
played the
Milwaukee.
first 2 seasons in Milwaukee,
Yeah.
but also a two-time MVP, I think.
Eh, I would have guessed one, but probably two then.
I'm just spitballing off the top of my head.
I'm gonna
So
see just to be certain. Two
it does.
sounds two sounds as reasonable as one, really. Yeah, I think it
So
was two
two,
because it was two for Nogueira, then two for
yeah,
McAdoo.
32, 33 for Nogueira.
Yeah,
Uh, and then another center of the year in 33 and 35.
yeah,
34 and 35. So 4 years of center of the year and two MVPs on top of that.
yeah. Also, just in comparison for Clegane, 4 MVPs and not in consecutive seasons either. It was like 17, 18, 19, and 21, or 16, 17, 18, and 20. So, yeah, I think Clegane is a suitable best of all time rail player. We also talked about the battalion a little. I think Wally Herman is quite easily even the best battalion player of all time. Not that they do have that long of a history, but do you have any other players you'd consider like OG Amaru or Ilozumba? But
I would say Iluzumba is as a Kobe is the battalion all-time player.
hmm,
No disrespect to Herman, but Iluzumba was like better, more prominent throughout the career, while
yeah,
Herman was a role player for the early 6 seasons or something like that of his career,
yeah. I
and
think
only
for
after one.
Ilozumba, I would consider it a role player if you just shoot 25 times and get 24 points in a game. Like that's a role. That's not like superstar production or anything. But yeah, I guess you're maybe right because later in his career, I think Ilozumba also was with high passing, so there was like the complete offensive game thing. Whereas for Herman, it was just like not Tim Duncan esque really, but like I was going too far in the other end. I was gonna say Kevon Looney esque, but maybe that's doing a disservice to Herman. Anyway, just yeah, yeah. I think I'm just gonna go with Ilo Zumba as well. For the Chiefs, who would you guess has the most points in franchise history?
Mm. The Chiefs.
There's like two sort
Must be
of good
someone from the
answers.
30s,
Yes.
early 40s. I don't know who's two players that were the Chiefs go-to guys for that.
Well, can you remember who was the Chiefs general manager back then?
No, I don't concern myself with successful Chiefs history. I only know the dark days.
Right.
Mm,
No, well, I wouldn't say it was successful. Oh, I also played there. Oh, almost forgot. Like the other time, someone had a press conference saying like the teams you'd like to be drafted by or whatever, and I just named all the teams I had played for, and even made a note to say, yeah, I also played for the Knights, but I don't think I remember to mention the Chiefs. Fuck that. Anyway, yeah, it was Gul Sharp with Jackson Sharp the third, and Keidan with Koji Matsui, who pretty much just like as point guard and shooting guard carried the franchise to 46 wins every season and then lost.
nothing more.
Yes. Well, I'm guessing they had at some point like over 50 wins, but still like in the playoffs, less memorable. I'm just
Yeah,
gonna
just
go take
looking
a
at
look.
Sharp's amount of playoffs games, I see one season in the playoffs with Colorado. So,
One!
yeah.
Amazing. Uh,
I mean, even Maeda had one season of the playoffs in
yeah, maybe
Colorado.
Maeda is the franchise goal.
Nah, definitely not. The
Or,
airball chief, he bounced too early.
yeah. Isaiah Redding is gonna have playoff
Y-
games again this season and has had playoff games in his
Yeah,
past
maybe
year.
Redding can have
Yeah,
a claim. That's true.
yeah, it's interesting. Like definitely
Or
not.
Curtis Davis for three dunk contest winners. That could
Yeah,
also be.
that's I would count that as memorable, but I think Davis only played for 5 seasons, whereas the other players played for like seven
Not,
or
not
more.
even five. I think even only four or three, because he
Mm,
spent his first couple of seasons elsewhere and
Pittsburgh,
got traded.
Atlanta, then Colorado, 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 and maybe one more in Colorado. So yeah, four in Colorado before going to OKC. Yeah, I think that
Before
makes
being
sense.
shipped off, and then I don't know what happened afterwards.
Yeah. Well, we'll keep an eye on this one when Isaiah Redding the second wraps up his career if he does actually have a claim in the general consensus eyes. Then another very juicy one, the Brooklyn Bullets. Um, it's difficult to really surpass the fact that a lot of the SBA records and or SBA seasonal awards are named after some of the early SBA Brooklyn Bullets players like
Hmm.
Catania, Stokes, and they also had Kip Carsons, and then they also had like Moadi played there for a bit, maybe like four or
You have
five seasons.
Suzuki as like the role player enabler
Yeah, but
most
I
of the
think
time.
Suzuki played too much elsewhere to be considered. Like Suzuki benefited the franchise like no one else for just being in and out and getting more value in trades. But I think he played like 2 seasons in Miami and 1 or 2 seasons in OKC, which sort of puts a dent in the longevity aspect.
Mm.
But yeah, Miyamoto maybe not flashy enough. Also,
Not flashy enough for too long stretches of his career, I think.
yeah, and DMX also
DMX,
played elsewhere
yeah.
later. Hmm.
I think maybe Stokes is in terms of the relatively modern players.
Yeah, that would have been my like first instinct as well. But if someone was to say like, "Oh, 6-time Finals MVP, keep Carsons," I wouldn't really hold that against him.
Yeah,
That's
you can't really argue with it.
yeah. Up next is the Los Angeles Rush. Would you say they have competition for the spot, or is it more so like for Cameron Millwall? Like
I
they also
think it
had
probably
Krieg
Millwall.
and Nemias,
Creek
but
Creek is even less successful than Millwall was. Um, I think maybe Nemais, but he also played one season in Philly and didn't play for as long. I think.
yeah,
Yeah, I
because
think
Millwall played
it's
for
probably
yeah
Millwall too.
Millwall played for like 11 seasons and was like still almost kind of good in year 11 or 12. Not good
We
for
can
winning.
give a shout out to Kevin Wu, even though he was, I think he even won one shooting guard of the year. I think.
Maybe
Um,
second place. I don't
yeah,
remember Wu winning like a first team All SPA, but could be.
let's take a look. Where is Kevin? Kevin, Kevin, Kevin. Chicago user profile.
Just in terms
Oh,
of
you're
like,
right. He was only second,
yeah,
I guess.
just in terms of like award success, obviously you would still then have Shaka Banks, but I'm not gonna entertain that thought for much longer. So we're gonna move on to Ocelots, who, yeah, we post Campazzo and Bezic, but still probably would end up on Hero,
On
Apollo
Hero.
Hero. Yeah. And up next would be the Washington Wild, and this, um,
I guess Mercer
yeah,
wins.
Jervin and Graves are also like notable players in the history of
Yeah,
the team, but it's difficult to say like was the best because like Mercer played elsewhere and Jervin obviously played elsewhere, but Graves didn't play elsewhere. So how much of a boost does that really give him in the conversation? I don't know. Maybe the peak Wild was well, hmm, since Mercer played in Seattle for his years 7 and 8, I think, or was it 8 or 9, something like that. So it's, but yeah, difficult to say. Maybe Mercer had the best season in a wild uniform out of all the three players. Um,
and it's. I think it's also kind of when I think of the Wild, I think of Mercer because he's the only guy that really was vocal from that team and also stayed with the team after the exodus that happened after the GM change back then. Um,
Yeah, and then oh, I should have paused the recording. I just pressed mute. It was right next to pause. So, anyways, hope you enjoyed that 17 seconds of perfect silence. Uh, a lesson in discipline with the 5th week podcast. Yeah, for Inferno, we also talked about it earlier a little bit. I think Hawkins is the number one, but then you have some interest with Witherspoon.
But
Then you,
what about Shadow Shield?
yeah, I was just gonna go there. Then you also have some interest with players like Shepard and
Oh,
Shadow
right.
Shield and Simmons even. Although Simmons, um,
Simmons skipped
interesting.
for his last 2 seasons, I think.
Yeah, interesting. Uh, More interesting in his time in Atlanta. Um, Came on as a rookie phenomenon and then stayed as a former rookie phenomenon for 4 years and then once again was great. So, yeah, it's interesting. Do you think Shadow Shield would be like? I think Hawkins is one of the best players of all time, but also played in Chicago for a while, so that's against him somewhat.
Yeah, I think it's probably still Hawkins, also because Hawkins won awards. Not that Shadow Shield didn't try, but he wasn't as good as Hawkins was.
Mm. Yeah.
I
Also,
mean, if we talk cultural impact, maybe Dion Miller also deserves a shout out. Um, but yeah, I think there's a couple of discussable players, but in the end, you end up at Hawkins.
yeah, they also have had some of the one season players, like not just literally one season, but Onizuka went there for a little bit, I think, and
2 seasons, two first round exits.
yeah, and
I want to say.
Fuego played there for the first season of his career, but then it was not maybe at the Fuego then. So yeah,
Oh,
I'm gonna stay with Hawkins until I'm somehow proven otherwise. With the Ironman, I think Ross or Banks. Weird picks. Definitely
kind
weird
of want
picks.
to say Banks,
Yeah,
but first also had a great peak in Pittsburgh. So
yeah. They are actually quite comparable now that I think of it.
mm,
But maybe Banks played more in
yeah, he
Pittsburgh
played longer, but then was gone for his
prime.
peak
Yeah,
stuff. So if you would have won as MVP or a ring with the Ironman, I think it would be Banks. With no discussions. So this way you can argue Frost. I won't stop you if you do.
any interest in Jackson Sharp or Isaac Cannon? No.
Cannon maybe, but not Sharp.
Hmm. Yeah, Sharp also played for like only 4 or 5 seasons.
Yeah, he jumped on after I don't know how many seasons and then left again. So
Yeah. On the defensive side, of less notable like highlight players, also Kashawn Harris played 9 seasons in Pittsburgh, perfectly fine for 8 of the 9 seasons. Some would even argue for nine of
mm,
the 9 seasons. So that was nice. But yeah, I think Banks is a good pick there. For the Jokers, there is actually again some interesting players there. Would you say it's um, or who are the top ones you'd consider? I think off the top of my head, there's like Damon, Young, Manslapper, and
Kamsky maybe.
yeah, yeah,
I'm mixing Kamsky and Damon together all the time.
yeah.
Um, yeah, I don't know. The Joker's all-time leaderboards are full of players who were good, who were important to the franchise in some capacity, but never really like the best in the league. So
Yeah, that seems sort of apt. I think, yeah. Damon was the player who always had the ball, but then Kamsky was the player who always made the shots. So it's interesting to put Damon ahead of Kamsky. It's like, obviously Damon also scored more, like away from the play-by-play text, but there is like something comparable to the real life NBA. Whereas if you just hold the ball a lot, then you're very famous.
You're going to shoot it a
Yeah.
lot. Yeah.
Well, even if you don't shoot it that much, like if you always just pass it for a layup, that also makes you, well, that's a very good offense, I would figure. But that's what makes you famous. Anyway, that's some. I'm not really ready to make a decision on that. I'm just gonna say Manslapper and move on, because Young and Damon and Kamsky all play together, and it's difficult to pick which one of them I like the best. Well, I guess Manslapper also played at the same time.
Manslapper also played like 2 seasons removed from Damon and Kamsky at least. Um, so was drafted 2 seasons after Damon and Kamsky.
Yeah,
So they're
so
all kind of the same team, which makes it even more difficult to choose from one of
all right, I'm gonna go with Sky Terry then.
them.
47 points per game. That's like very memorable. Yeah. Well, I guess I'm to a no decision there. Do you have a favorite? Of those or?
I want to say, kind of want to say Manslapper, but only because Damon and Kamsky never said a word. So uh,
I thought Matty Hoops was very well. I also read all the sim threads at that time because I was the one posting in them. But for the Corsairs, I think it's quite easy to say it's Versace, but then you also have players like Leonidas, who played for like 15 seasons there and was very good. And then I
as
guess,
someone who has no clue who most of those players are, Samson is quite high on a number of leaderboards.
yeah,
I mean, I know that Versace was a beast, so especially in his prime. So probably still him, but Samson is like very far up the leaderboards and a lot of stuff.
yeah, Samson also played for 10 or 11 seasons in a Corsairs uniform, so that's quite nice. Of playoff success, I think they won one championship, or maybe not. It's
Versace has two championships.
Yeah, but for
Okay,
Samson,
Samson, let's just
I think
check.
yeah, one
He
championship
only has
because
one
he is
championship on
a
on
Finals MVP. Yeah, yeah. Hmm. And for Leonidas, it's interesting because like this is something I've never really thought of because for pretty much as long as I've been in the SPA, the Corsairs have been like, let's say, relegation threatened. A couple of nice blips here and there, but especially now the past like 4 seasons or 5 seasons even there.
Yeah.
But it's so difficult to say because I've never thought of like what's good about the Corsairs because they've never been good when I was here, really. But yeah, I'm gonna stay with my pick of Versace, but Samson also would be very deserving. Then for the last few, for oh my god, Seattle also has a million players who have played for them. Let's say that one for last. For the
Oh,
Thunderbirds,
oh Jesus. Um,
Michael McGrady, maybe
Thunderbirds. Yeah, Michael McGrady pops into my mind mainly because he has all those point guard of the years. Or
Alex Taylor.
yeah,
No.
uh,
And also some of the guys. Tuki Lamont was the one I shouted out earlier, but very famous for actually having the first, I think, triple double that spelled out 10, 10.
yeah. Spelled 10 and 10, but
Yeah,
was
instead
like
of
triple double.
9.9. Yeah. So shout outs to Tuki. Also won a championship with Tuki Lamont. But yeah, I think I'm gonna just say
Yeah, I think
McGrady and move
McGrady.
on because that's the easiest. For Atlanta, it's become a little diluted, I think, because in the past you had like Eddie Donovan would have been a pick because he played for 6 or 7 seasons there, but like in the case of Suzuki, went in and out because that was even more beneficial to the team. But then some of his teammates, like Keyshawn O'Donnell, just played there a lot all through that time, and Jay DeVorge. But
The one
DeVorge,
season of Ken Armstrong.
right, or the 2 seasons of Troy Simmons, or I think Ben Waters also played there for a few seasons. That's a good pick, and Pengu, even I think started in Atlanta. Yeah, excellent. Not gonna Jihan Chen, anyone?
Trace only
Yeah,
won a couple of
Finals
awards.
MVP. No.
Not with the
Oh,
Vipers.
right. Not we're still sticking to the assignment. Oh, imagine if the Vipers just won a championship in between somewhere and we all forgot about it. Yeah, uh, I think Abaddon mostly considered the Warsh to be the best Viper of all time.
Wasn't the Roche Korn's failed attempt at, I don't know what it even was.
Yeah.
I know
But for
he tried an
longevity,
experiment and just said, this didn't work out.
yeah, but just for longevity and like talent, I don't know. Maybe it's O'Donnell.
Yeah, I think it's O'Donnell right now.
Yeah,
You
I
could
can't.
also say the Silver Taylor for the counting stats, but yeah,
Yeah, or even El
maybe
Meliani, but
as
that's
quite as with O'Donnell and co.
yeah. All right, so with that, we land on the Seattle Knights. I think this is just going to be all players who neither of us have ever seen in a sim thread, like
Yeah,
JJ
uh,
Harklewood, Hector Fuego, Rollo Normandy, Isaiah Green, Jashawn Atkins the second.
Miles Pepper.
Yeah,
That,
yeah, Memphis
yeah, I
Carlisle.
think let me just throw Diego Rossi out there because he played there a while, has a lot of assists, also on the all-time leaderboard. Could could be a
Yeah,
pick.
yeah. I think for the sort of modern era, Rossi is very good, and then for the past eras, Zach Goff Jr. played there for like 15 seasons again, and also sort of
Austin
successful.
Delgado, Mercer Island Knights.
No,
That's not the Seattle Knights. We are
uh,
not taking him into account.
but yeah, Zach Goff Jr. was a two-time MVP, Finals MVP. Not sure about the regular season. Probably one in there as well.
Yeah,
Although that was at the time of Clegane and McCready between, yeah, season 22, Zach Goff Jr. Yeah. So in the end, I think Zach Goff Jr. is easily the greatest knight of all
for
time.
Mercer Island.
Oh yeah, for Mercer Island.
For Mercer Island.
For Seattle,
I mean, it's not even Rossi because Rossi was also
also in
90%
Mercer Island,
Mercer
yes.
Island. Who is it then? Fuego? Is it really Fuego?
Yeah, or Isaiah Green, or like fucking.
I would still count Fuego over Green, I think.
Yeah. Definitely Fuego was a better player, but just in terms of like, yeah, let's fuck it. Let's just say it's Fuego. It's not something that's like separating them out that way. It's not something like that's gonna breed very thoughtful
uh,
conversation. Yeah. Well,
three
this
seasons of Benjamin Chevelle.
or 3 seasons of JJ Harklewood. Yeah, that's the same joke I made earlier. But yeah, I won an MVP trophy there.
Yeah, that's okay, one could say.
Yeah,
And
compared to
it's moving
Chevelle, who
forward.
won no MVP trophy at least. So that's
I
one.
remember predicting Chevelle as the center of the year for I
Yes.
think 5 seasons in a row.
And then when you stop predicting, he won it.
I wouldn't be surprised if he did.
Yeah, not sure if he ever did actually.
I think he won one.
But I don't
Yeah,
know if it was center or power forward. I'm pretty sure it would have been power forward for Chevelle.
winners center of the year. Where is it? Here.
Power forward of the year. I think the same season I was MVP, or the season when I was defensive player of the year. I think
So
Chevelle.
definitely not center on of the year.
Yeah, I only played center.
Yeah, power forward 45.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, this segment ballooned out of hand since we started this like 48 minutes ago. And thanks everyone for uh, raging silently where we can't hear you when we forget to name a greatest player of your franchise history. Even especially if that's you looking at Samuel Austin. Well, actually, not sure Brenstel is gonna listen to this podcast. Anyways,
I
uh,
doubt it. I doubt it.
yeah,
Otherwise, please come back. I don't want to write Hall of Fame introductions anymore.
yeah,
We can have him back.
that would be quite nasty. Like you don't want to take partake in the day-to-day SPA, but then you still listen to a 1 hour 22-minute podcast about it. See you again, Brenstel. It was very nice knowing you, and see you again, Nepto. I hope I keep knowing you instead of what happened with Brenstel.